Hilchas Mamrim Perik Revi. Now we learned that in order for a person to be a Zaken Mamre, he's arguing with the Bezdin HaGadol about something which Chayav Mal's Deini Koros V'Shigigasi Chatas. And in that Inyan, it could be in one of three ways. It could be directly something that's Dovish is Deini Koros V'Shigigasi Chatas, and they're having an argument. They're having an argument whether this Chaylev is considered Chaylev or not. So Chaylev is Chayav als Deini Koros V'Shigigasi Chatas, and they're arguing whether or not this is Chaylev. They're arguing whether this dam is dam Tomei or dam Torah. They're arguing whether she's an erva or not. That's a direct machlekes about Dovish is Deini Koros V'Shigigasi Chatas. Then you can have an argument about a Durabonon, about a Gzeira Durabonon of something which is Deini Koros V'Shigigasi Chatas. For example, Chometz b'Pesach is Deini Koros V'Shigigasi Chatas. If a person eats Chometz on Pesach. Now there's a din Durabonon that b'shor shishis, Chometz is Aser. And b'shor chamishis, it's Aser b'achila and it's mutter b'hano. So the question is, they're arguing either b'shor shishis, whether it's Aser or mutter. So there's an argument b'negeh shor shishis, and the person, the Zaken Mamri is saying that it's mutter, or b'shor chamishis, he's timing that it's Aser b'achila. So it's again, they're having an argument about a gzeira of something which is Deini Koros V'Shigigasi Chatas. So that would also make a person a Zaken Mamre. And then you can have a mitzvah where a person is arguing about something which is really direct, not be'em is Deini Koros V'Shigigasi Chatas, but that could cause Deini Koros V'Shigigasi Chatas. L'moshel, they're arguing about a din b'negeh dini mominus, whether this moment is rightfully his or not. L'chura, it's a din dini mominus. But whether if the money is rightfully his, and then he'll be mekadosh al isha, so she'll become mekudeshes, and memela habol is chayav koros. Masha'inkin, if it's not his, so then lepel when he's mekadosh isha, she's not mekudeshes. So memela habol won't be chayav koros. So this is a case where they're arguing about something which is going to be him something which is Deini Koros V'Shigigasi Chatas. So that also goes into together of an argument which makes a person to a Zaken Mamri, which is chayav chenek. That's the dinam and pratim of this perik. Perik Revi. Zokin shecholak al bezin bedover shechayovin al Deini Koros V'Shigigasi Chatas. When he has an argument with the bezin, is bein shahoyu ein oisrin v'hu matir, or bein shahoyu hein matirin v'hu eiser, is ariza chayav misa. What side of the argument is he? Whether he's being matir something that they aser, or he's answering something that they're matir lepel, since he's arguing with them and he's passing against them, so he's considered a Zaken Mamri. Afilu hoya hu eimer mipia kabbalah. He's tying that this is his kabbalah mirabesov. V'amar kach kibalti mirabesai. And v'hei neimrim no kach nira beinenu shadin nesen. We don't have such a kabbalah. We're not accepting your kabbalah. And lepel ba'uns, the din is nesen, that the seichel says that this is the pshat. So hail v'cholak aleim b'dover. Lepel, he argues with them, even though he's timing that he has a kabbalah, and they're timing that they're saying mipi asvara. But nevertheless, hail v'cholak aleim b'dover v'osa eira lases. So the din is ariza chayiv misa. It's in tzorich leimerim hoyu heim meirim mipi kabbalah. If they're also saying mipi kabbalah, and let's say he's also saying mipi kabbalah, or he's saying minadin. So either way, so since because when a person says something mipi kabbalah, there's more strength to it. He's saying this is the kabbalah mirabesai. So we're saying even when this Zaken Mamre, this person that's not part of the business, tiny that he has a kabbalah, and they're tiny, they're being done miatzmom. Nevertheless, he's considered a Zaken Mamre, and Memele he has a din, all the dinim of a Zaken Mamre. V'chein, that's din if he's arguing b'negeh mamish adover shechayovna as din nikar shigos echatas. V'chein, im cholek aleim b'gzeira min ha'gzeiris shegozru b'dover sheyesh b'shigos echatas b'zdei nikaras. Because not only they argued actually about something which is Deini Koros V'Shigigasi Chatas, but rather they're arguing about a Gzeira D'Rabbanan, Kigain, Shehiter HaChometz Yemar Ba'asa B'Shos Shishis. We know Shos Shishis, Chometz is Aser Midrabbanan, and he went ahead and was mated that Chometz. He was mated that Chometz. Oy, Osrei B'Hano B'Shos Chamishis. We know B'Shos Chamishis. It's Aser B'Achila, but it's Mutter B'Hano, and he was Asered B'Hano B'Shos Chamishis. He said an Isser. Is again, since we're dealing something which is related to chometz, so enochnami b'shashishas b'shachamishas, there's no din kares. But on the other hand, since we're dealing with a gzeira of chometz, which chometz there's a din kares, so there's a reza chayev misa v'chein kol kiyetz b'zeh. So either he's arguing, even if he's being answering something that they're matter, something which is deini kares shigigos echatas, or he's arguing about a gzeira, about something which is Deni Kodesh Shigosei Chatas. Now, Echad Dover Shechayovna as Deni Kodesh Shigosei Chatas Shenechluku Bei. Either they argue about the thing itself, Dover Shechayovna as Deni Kodesh Shigosei Chatas, Shenechluku B'Dover Hamevili De Dover Shechayovna as Deni Kodesh Shigosei Chatas. Even though they're not arguing about the actual Dover Shigosei Chatas, but they're arguing about something which can have an effect on something which is Deni Kodesh Shigosei Chatas. So that also is included in this din that the person becomes a Zekin Mamrim. Now, Kate said, what would be the case of where they're arguing about the actual Dover Shigosei Kodesh Shigosei Chatas? Nechluku B'isha Zu im hi erva ein erva. The shaila is if she's an erva is chayiv kares, or in mare dam zem mare mitame b'isha or yena mitame. They want to know if there's mare dam and an isha, a dam nida, whether it's mitame yena mitame. Im zu tmei leida yena tmei leida. If this woman is tmei leida, memele she asur lebaila, well, it's chayiv kares. If she goes into the Beis Hamikdash, she's chayiv kares. Is im zu tmei leida yena tmei leida. Im zu zava yena zava. If the woman is a zava or not. Or im chaylev ze asrei mutter. If this chaylev is asrei mutter, chaylev is chayiv kares. So over here we're having a direct argument about a chiyuv kares. So over here we say that if the person argues, the bezin, this Zokin Mamri is arguing with the bezin agadol, whether he's being matur or he's being asr, either way he's chayiv misa. V'chol kiyetze beilu harei zacholak b'dover shechayovna al zdei nikarav shigosei chatas. Now, v'keitza dover hamevili de dover shechayovna al zdei nikarav shigosei chatas. He's not arguing directly about a dover shezdei nikar shigigos echatas. He's arguing about something that's maybe the dover shechayovna zdei nikar shigigos echatas. Kigain shenechluku beibur hashana. They were arguing b'negei ibur hashana, adding an extra month to the year. In ma'abrim adapurim, a bechol other, whether you could make an extra ibur, in other words, add an other till Purim or an entire other. Is that is a chayiv? Is also chayiv. Why? What's the negate to dover shigigos echatas? If you hold you could be ma'aber, so then Pesach is going to be later. If you hold you can't be ma'aber, so Pesach is going to be earlier. So they're arguing when Pesach is going to be, whether if a person is ma'aber after the Purim, whether Pesach is going to be later or earlier. That's the argument. So that's the negate to Dover Shezdei Nikar Shigosei Chatas. They're having an argument b'din mominus, a b'minyan hadayonim shedoned din mominus. So that would also raise a b'chayiv. What's the shayches to zdei nikar shigosei chatas? Because l'dvarav shelechot shezeh chayiv lezeh, according to the one that holds that this person owes the other person money. So therefore, v'chol shenotel mimenu, whatever the person that's owed the money to took from the person that owes him money is the kidin notel. If he took money away from him, so he took it kidin. It wasn't a gzela. Uledvarav shozeh she'emer potter, a she'emer she'ein elu royu loden. So really, this psak din is not really a valid psak din. Is called, even though bezin paskin, but lepel they don't have a din of a bezin. Is called shenotel gezul biyadi, and therefore vim kiddush be'isheinim kudeshes. Aber ledivrei emer shelei notel habo le b'mezid onish kares u'b'shegig mevi chatas. So they're having an argument whether this person owes this person money. They're having an argument whether this bezin is roy to paskin dinim ominous. So that argument is going to change whether when they paskin that he owes him money, whether the money that person takes from the person that owes him the money, whether that money is gzela or it's not gzela. If it's gzela, so if he's going to mekadesh isha, she's not mekudeshes. And memela habola is not chayiv kares. Mashenkin, if it is gzela, so then if it isn't gzela, if it's gzela, so then it's not mekudeshes, and if it isn't gzela, she is mekudeshes. So basically, their argument is going to be whether this isha, they're not arguing about an isha, but their argument can have effect whether this isha is going to become mekudeshes and whether abola is chayiv kares. So that's considered they're arguing about a dover shemevili de dover, which will have an effect whether it was deina kares or shigosei chatas. So they're having an argument whether or not a person is mechuyev malchus. There's an argument. Either there's an argument whether for this particular thing you're chayev malchus, or there's an argument how many dayonim you need to be mechayev malchus. Is also harei chayev this is considered that they're arguing about something which is shigigasi chatos, zdei nikar shigigasi chatos. Why? Shari ledivrei ein leika, that he's not chayiv malchus, is chayvim heim bay, and therefore v'chayavim l'shalim, and therefore v'chol sheyitin mehem kidil yita. Since they really owe him money for being chayvul in him, so therefore he has a right to take what he's taking, and therefore if he's mekadosh nisha with that, it's kedin notel. L'divrei heimer ben malchusu is kol sheyitil mehem gezel biyodi b'im kiddush b'yisheinim kodeshes. So they're really arguing about a din b'negiyah malchus, either whether you're chayiv malchus or whether how many people you need in order to be mechayiv malchus. But lepeil, this argument can have an effect, because lepeil, if the person is chayiv malchus, so then the chavala that they gave him was kedin, so therefore he had no right to take money from them. Masha'inkin, if they wasn't really chayiv malchus, so they were chayvul in him, so they owe him money. And now if he goes and takes the money from them, so he's taking it kedin, and that'll have an effect, whether the money he takes from them, and he's mekadosh and isha, has a din of kedushin. If it's gezel, it's not kedushin, and if it's not gezel, it is kedushin. V'chein, im nachluku be'ercheni b'charam. The argument whether or not a person was mechayiv himself erken to hegdish or charamim. So the question is, the question is, in this particular case of this erchen and charam, is he mechuyev to give the money to hegdish? Is also ariza chayiv. Why? Shari l'divrei ha'emer ein chayiv litain. According to the mandama that holds, according to the one that will hold that ein chayiv litain, so lepeil im lokchu mimanu, hegdish took the money from him, is ariza gezel. So that's moment of gezel, and therefore v'amekadosh be'isheinim kodeshes. In other words, if hegdish is going to come and take away this money from him, then someone's going to take this moment of hegdish and use it to be mekadosh isha. He's being mekadosh isha with gezel. Masha'inkin, if lepeil belongs to hegdish, so it really doesn't belong to that person that's mekadosh isha. But the din is that if you use moment of hegdish b'shoigig in your mekadosh isha, we learned in Hilchas Ishus, so lepeil, the money is yetzel l'chulin, and the isha is mekudeshes. So if it's hegdish, so then when a person will be mekadosh and isha, the isha will be mekudeshes. And if this erchen and haram isn't really hegdish, so then when the person will be mekadosh isha, he's being mekadosh isha with moment of gezel. V'cheinim cholek aleim b'pidin hakochim. Whereas someone was paid the kochim, im nivdu elei nivdu, whether it still has a din of kochim, is that he's a chayiv, shari l'divrei me'ein zepidin. So the one that says that it's ein zepidin, im kiddush b'isha, ein mukodesh. So much of mekadosh isha with something, for example, b'mezid. So when you mekadosh isha with hegdish b'mezid, so then it's not yetzel l'chulim. So if it's really hegdish, so lepel, it won't be mukodeshes. Masha'inkin, if he was paid it, so it's his money, so therefore it is mukodeshes. That's the nechluku barifas egla. They were arguing about a din of barifas egla of egla arufa. Im elu chayavim lohavi ein chayavim. If this egla arufa is supposed to be brought or not. Now harei chayiv is also chayiv. Why? Should egla arufa, when you bring an egla arufa, the egla arufa becomes asabano. Shal divrei eimer chayavim lohavi. The one that's according to the one that will say that you are chayiv to bring the egla arufa, so it comes out harei asurabano. So this egla arufa is asurabano, and therefore v'amekadosh b'yishein v'kodeshes. Masha'inkin, if you hold that it wasn't really an egla rufa and it never really became an egla rufa, so then if the person gets it, it's his. For example, if the bezdin or the city, in other words, the city buys the egla rufa, the bezdin, the city have to buy the city has to buy the egla rufa. But the pill, if it wasn't really an egla rufa, so it belongs to the city, and then they can give it to someone. Masha'inkin, if it wasn't egla rufa, so then it had a din of isur bano. V'chein nechluka ba'arla, whether or not it's arla or not. And again, arla is asur bano. V'chein nechluka b'leket shichu peya im zel anim eli balabayis. So the din is ariza chayiv. So el diviyim eli balabayis, that it belongs to the balabayis, it doesn't belong to the aniyim. So then ariza gezel biyadoni. So if the ani will stake it, so then it's gezel v'im kiddush b'yisheinim kodeshes. V'chein. So these are all things that will be goyrim to iser, whether it's a davar zleini karish gasichatz. We're all dealing with dini mamanis. The question is whether lepel, this money is his, or this money is not asur bano, and therefore you could be mekadosh isha, or this money is hegdish, and memela, if someone will be mekadosh isha with this money, so then b'shegig, so memela it'll be mail behegdish, and therefore the money will be yetzel l'chul, and the isha will be mekadeshes or not. These are the cases. So again, we had the issue in the direct dini mominus, whether or not dini mominus is b'shleisha, and others A Shaila b'negei hilchas dini mamris, so l'chura it seems like it has nothing to do with davar shezdei nikaras shegigosei chatas, but nevertheless, this Shaila b'negei dini mamris will have an effect whether or not the money belongs to this person, and therefore he could be mekadosh isha, and then l'peil if he's mekadosh isha, is abol is chayiv karis. Masha'inkin, if the money is not his, so then he wasn't really mekadosh the isha, and therefore habola if will be mekadosh the isha with that money. So whoever will be bola won't be chayiv al teishasish. Now there is a benegea malchus. If there's a shaila benegea malchus, so again it ultimately affects mominus because lepil if they gave him malchus shalei kedin, so then he's entitled to get money, and if he takes the money, so the money is his. If they didn't give him malchus shalei kedin, so then he's not entitled to that money, and therefore if he takes that money, it's gezel. And if they argued benegea erchem or charamim, so again the shaila is whether or not it became hegdish. If it became hegdish, so then that money, since it's hegdish, so if someone will be mekadosh isha b'shegig, so it'll be a male behegdish and lepeil will be yotzel lechulim. Masha'inkin, if it's not hegdish, so it's gezel. The male of that kedushin is not a kedushin. And the same thing whether or not when you were paid the kachim, the shaila is whether the kachim is still kachim, or no, the kachim belongs to the person that was paid it. So if it belongs to the person that was paid it and is mekadosh isha, she's mekadeshes. If it doesn't belong to the person that was paid it, it's still kachim. So then the din will be that lepeil, if it was mekadosh isha b'mezid, so then it won't be Yetzel L'chulim, because Lepel only by Meshegig it's Yetzel L'chulim. It belongs to Hegdish, not Yetzel L'chulim. Al-Deres, if they're arguing in the Ge'eg L'Arufa, the Shaila is if it's Asr B'Ano or not, again, ultimately has an effect on B'Negea whether or not the Isha is Mekudeshes. And Al-Deres, B'Negea Orla, all Yisuri Ano. And Al-Deres, B'Negea Lekrit Shikol Peah, the Shaila is whether or not it belongs to the Aniyim or it belongs to the Balabayis. V'chein, Im Cholek Aleim Be'av Mi'oves HaTumah. Arguing benegay avatuma, kigay nigay boser, a nigay batim, a nigay b'godim, is also a riza chayv. Why is that dover shezdei nikar shigos echatos? Shari l'divrei emer toher. So the one that says that this beggar is toher is muter likonis l'migdash v'lechel kachim. So there's nothing wrong. Even if he touches it, he doesn't become tamei, and therefore he's able to be likonis l'migdash v'lechel kachim. However, l'divrei emer tamei, the one that says he's tamei, so im nichnas eochel b'mezid onush kodesh. Ubeshegig maybe chatas. V'cheinum nechlu b'taras mitzeirim. Yeshlu zatara einlei. Most if you have a person doesn't have a bein yad, so the shaila is whether or not you could be mitayrim. So I'll call upon him. The shaila is if he's still tamei and he's also likonis lemigdash, and if he goes into the migdash, so maybe he'll be chayiv dei nikar shegosei chatas or not. The shaila is whether he's torah or not. V'cheinum nechlu ku b'hashkoa seita im zu tzricha lishteis eina tzricha. Whether or not she's tzricha lishteis or not is also a riza chayiv. Why? Shari l'divrei matzricha, the one that holds that she's tzricha lishtes, tze'imes habal kedem shetishta, is a riza asur l'yov. In other words, the question is whether or not she has a din of a seita. Whereas a seita is asur l'bayla until she drinks. Now the question is, did she have a din of a seita? Was it a type of edus or whatever that was mechayiv her that she's mechuyev to drink? So if she's tzricha lishtes, she's asur l'yov. The Yovan is not been miyabim. However, a livrei heimer eina tzricha, the one that says that she is eina tzricha lishtes, is Messiah Bemes. Now the question is, l'chura, this din, this is a shaila that the achreinim ask, that l'chura, even if you say that there's a din that eishes ach shalei b'mokam mitzvah is an erva. For mokam mitzvah, there's a din yibum. Now lepel, this isha, even if she's tzricha lishtes, and lepil, someone will be ball leha, so he's not chayiv koros. She doesn't have a din of an erva. She doesn't have a din of an erva. So knows a person was married to someone, and lepil, this woman was kilius tira, and mele she was tzricha lishtes, and then he died. So the din is the yavam can be miyabmer, but she needs chalitza. The yavam can be miyabmer, and she needs chalitza. And lepil, if the yavam is miyabmer, so he's not chayiv koros. Because if she would be chayv krisus, so then l'mashal, if there would be other yavamis, so they would also be potter. They would have a din of a tzoras erva. They don't have a din of a tzoras erva. In other words, if you have a person has two wives, one of the wives is tzricha lishtes, and the other wife is eina tzricha lishtes. So the one that's tzricha lishtes can be nisyabim, and the one that's eina tzricha lishtes could be nisyabim. If this tzricha lishtes would have a din of an erva, so obviously the one that's eina tzricha lishtes would have a din of a tzoras erva. So I'll call him, she's not a nervous. So the question is, what's the pshat that there's an issue whether or not she's asura liyavam or not? L'chur, it's not a really negeya even if she's asur liyavam, but it's not chayv krisus. So the Ram Ma'ora brings from the Granat, from Rabbi Naftali Trop, that he says that Pshat is Azay. The din is that a Yavam is kind of the Isha through Yibum. Through Bia, he's kind of the Isha and she becomes his wife. Then she becomes an Eshes Ish Gmura. When is there a din that a Yavam is kind of through Bia, she becomes an Eshes Ish Gmura, when there's a mitzvah of Yivam Yavi Allah? Masha'inkan over here, since she was Sichol so b'meila we learn out that she be'emes is not royal libum. She shouldn't. He's not supposed to be miyabim her. So b'meila, if he will be miyabim her, she's not going to be an eishesish. And if she's not going to be a eishesish, so then later on, Haba won't be chayiv koros. So that's the issue. The issue is not whether the bia of the yavam is chayiv krisis. That's for sure not chayiv krisis. So there's an issue whether or not she's tzicholishtes. The mind of community she's tzicholishtes. Nafkamina will be whether if the Yavim will be Ola, well, they shall become an Eishesish, and then Habola will be Chayiv Koros. That's how it works. But it's not been again the be of the Yavim himself. V'chein is Nachamol. V'chein am nechel kubashkoa seita im zu tzricha lishtisei netzricha is a reza Chayiv. Shari livrei metzricha im mesabal kedem shetishta is a reza asur l'Yavim. And we're adding asur l'Yavim, and therefore if the Yavim will be Ola, so she won't become an Eishesish. The divrei me'ein tzricha is misyabemis, and the meila she becomes an eishesish. V'chein kol ki etz bazeh tzricha livdek v'lachker. Im hoysa machleke zu mivil de dover zeh, v'dover zeh mivil de dover sheni. Afilu achar mea dvorim. Im yovei b'seif l'dover shchayav malzdei nikol shigdosi chatos. So then lepel that's considered a zoken mamri. Bein shehoya a zoken mekel v'hei machmirin. Ben shehoyu humachmer ve'im mekilin ariza chayv. So nachamo. So the Kudas Hadin is that if a person argues, the Zokan Mamri is arguing with the Sanhedrin, but negers something, which is either the thing itself is Dover Shizdeini Koros Shigosi Chatos, or the thing is a Gzeira about something Shizdeini Koros Shigosi Chatos. Like we learned in the Shoshishis of Chometz, or about something which could be Geirim, that it should be Zdeini Koros Shigosi Chatos, like we're saying in the Dinimominus, that the Shilas, they're arguing about Dinimominus, but the argument about Dinimominus will be Geirim whether this moment is his, and when he's Mekadosh Isha with this moment, whether she's Mekdoshes or not. They're arguing about Isuri Anoah, but again it's Negeh whether or not this money has a din of Isuri Anoah, whether you can Mekadosh Isha with it. They're arguing about Dini Malkus, and again the argument about Dini Malkus will have an effect whether or not the person that administered the Malkus is Chayiv Moment to the person that received the Malkus, or Kiyetze Bazeh. And here we'll said, well, they're arguing about a Seita, whether or not she's Sicholish or not, and that'll be Negeh whether when the Yavam will go ahead and be Ba'aleh, so she's going to become his wife, and Mela then later on when someone else will be Ba'aleh, so she has a din of an Eishasish. So all of these things, if one thing is Gerim, another thing, and eventually it's Davish, as Deini Kar, Shigosi Chatos, so the din is that that's the din of Zokan Mamri, and then he's Chayiv, also Zokan Mamri, which is Chayiv Chenek. Halacha Gimel, v'imli tovei ha'machlekes l'deikach, if it doesn't bring it to something that's Deini Kar, Shigosi Chatos, is Potter. Chutz mitzvahs tefillin b'lvad. Except for mitzvahs tefillin, it's a special halacha that we have halacha mishmi Sinai that by tefillin, if they're arguing about tefillin, so then that also could make a person into a zokan mamri. Ketzat hoire shemuta lehoisiv titefes chamishis b'tefillin v'yasa oisa chomish titofes. His areza chayiv. Now we have a bat. The Shalosh has 4 titofes. That's 4 batim, and he was hoire that you could add a 5th bias. Now, if he said Melchatchila, you could make a tefillin with 5 batim, so that tefillin with 5 batim Melchatchila doesn't have a din of tefillin, and on that such a case wasn't the halacha mishmi Sinai that he has a din of a zokan mamri. The din of a zokan mamri is when he was paskined to take a pair of tefillin which was kosher and to make it puzzle. To take a pair of tefillin which was kosher and to make it puzzle. So you have a pair of tefillin that has 4 batim, and then he paskined that you could add a 5th bias. So by adding a 5th bias, you're puzzling the tefillin that was there already, which was originally kosher. So then that's the din of a zokan mamri. That's ketzat oire shemuta loisav titefes chamishis b'tefillin. You could add another titefes v'yasa esei chomish titefes. So then is ariza chayav v'hu sheyasa b'tchila arbo batim kil chosam v'yavi chamishin yidavi b'chitzim. The psak din was that you had 4 batim l'chatchila and you added a 5th. Shabayis achitzin shein. What's the problem? Shabayis achitzin shein reis aver puzzle. V'chiv zokan mamre al davar zeh alach mipi hakabol. So in other words, we're talking about dafki in a case where there was originally 4 batim, and then he said you could add a 5th bias, and by adding a 5th bias, you're passing it. Why are you passing it? So the Rambam says the reason you're passing it is because the bias achitz and she'ein reis aver puzzle. So there's a shtickle dion the lechura. Why aren't you passing it mitzad isa baltesif? Or since this becomes baltesif, so now you have five titufis. So that would be the psul. As you had a kosher appeared film, which 4, and now you added a 5th, so that's baltesif. So it makes a psul. So there's a deal on whether or not adding a 5th bias and being medabikit, is that a din of baltesif? Is that an isser baltesif? So there's some that say that it's not an isser baltesif, and therefore that's why the only psul would be, the psul wouldn't be mitzad baltesif, the psul because you're covering the outside bias. And the Lepel, the Alter Rebbe Paskins, it does have a din of baltesif. The Alter Rebbe Paskins, it does have a din of baltesif. So the question is, why would this, in such a case, if it does have a din of baltesif, why wouldn't you be able to say that the reason why it's a problem of adding a 5th would be because of the din of baltesif? So there's a din about it. In the Grismesha, Nerechaim, he talks about this issue, this Rambam, why the Rambam says the psul of adding a 50 tefes is only because you're covering the outside bias. It's not because of the Yisra Baltesif. This is because the Rambam does holds that it's takanada Yisra Baltesif, or the Rambam says in such a case it's not Yisra Baltesif. So he's done on this. But I'll call upon him, it's clear, the din is clear in the Rambam, that if he just says, L'chatchil you should make 5 titofes, so that doesn't have this special din, the halacha, that he has a din of Zakim Mamri. But if he says you could add a 50 tefes to an existing pair of film which had 40 tefes, then he has a din of a Zakim Mamri. Avol im nechluku b'sh'ar mitzvahs, kin shecholak b'dovar b'divrei lulav, v'tzitzis e'shefer, zeimer posel, zeimer kosher, which has nothing to do with dover sh'zdei nikaros, sh'gigos echatas, and there's no special halacha l'ishmisai, since it's not something which is dover sh'zdei nikaros, sh'gigos echatas, zeimer yotzi dechivase, zeimer leyotza, zeimer toer, v'zeimer sheni l'tuma. The issue is not b'negea. In other words, when we had before b'negea nega, so over there the shiloh was an avat tumas. Maybe if a person will touch it, he'll be a rishon l'tumah, and he goes into Beis Hamikdash, is chayiv kares. Masha'enkin, if we're dealing with something which is, someone is saying something is Torah, and the other one is saying it's a sheni l'tumah, so then even if that goes into Beis Hamikdash l'peil, it's not chayiv kares. Is that is a potim and amisa v'chein kol ki yitzabazah.